Atlanta's #1 radio stations, Swanky 93.3 and The Heat 94.6 radio stations, has you covered. From our studios to our newsroom at K.L.P Entertainment. Listen on all major audio platforms like Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audacity, Apple Podcast, Stitcher Podcast, Google Podcast, YouTube, and more.
In 1987, some inner-city first graders were promised a college education. Now, this promise didn't come from a wealthy corporation. It came from Oral Lee Brown, who saved a large portion of her modest income every year for these children.
She told Miss Brown, you can't do everything. I said, no, but we need to do more.
And she did more by sending 19 kids to college, helping others. Pass it on. From the Foundation for a Better Life at Values.com.
K.L.P Aftermath with your host Kennedy Lucas brings out all the stops. Tune in to K.L.P Aftermath as we have stories, reviews, current events, and even our famous segment, Elephant in the Room. Inspired by the Breakfast Club's Donkey of the Day, K.L.P Aftermath with your host Kennedy Lucas streams on Atlanta's #1 radio station, Swanky 93.3 and The Heat's 94.6 radio station. Listen on all major audio platforms like Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audacity, Apple Podcast, Stitcher Podcast, Google Podcast, YouTube, and more.
A failing grade for America's schools, Biden meets with India's Prime Minister, and more. Teenagers' math and reading performance has continued to fall on the test known as the nation's report card, with math scores showing the largest ever declines since the National Assessment of Educational Progress began tracking long-term trends in student performance. Scores for 13-year-olds fell 9 points in math between the 2019-2020 school year and the 2022-2023 school year. The average reading scores fell 4 points. The results are the latest in a line of data from the NAEP over the past few years that have all shown widespread declines in student achievement. This test, though, is different from the NAEP's subject area assessments. Tennis legend Martina Navratilova had a four-word reaction on Wednesday after a witness at a Senate hearing on transgender athletes competing in women's sports was asked whether she thought males have a biological advantage over females in sports. Kelly Robinson, who describes herself as the first queer black president of the Human Rights Campaign, was asked the question by Senator John Kennedy. Robinson said she couldn't definitively say males have an advantage over women in sports. Robinson then tried to use a news article about how some men believe they could beat Serena Williams in tennis. Riley Gaines noted that Williams and her sister Venus both lost to the 203rd ranked male tennis player more than a decade ago. Navratilova did not appear at the hearing, but tweeted, "This is just sad." The 9-time Wimbledon champion has been an activist for the gay community, but has been against transgender women competing against biological women in sports. More ships joined the massive search operation to find a deep-diving submersible that went missing Sunday en route to the wreck of the Titanic, nearly 13,000 feet under the North Atlantic, with 5 people aboard. Sonar devices heard banging for a second day. The search narrowed to the area where the sounds were first heard on Tuesday, first every 30 minutes and then pausing before being heard again 4 hours later. "I can't tell you what the noises are," U.S. Coast Guard Captain Jamie Frederick said. The operation was still a search and rescue mission 100%, he said. but the next phase is crucial as the submersible, the Titan, was believed to have just hours of breathable air left on Thursday. President Biden met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the White House on Wednesday at the start of 2 days of official events during Modi's U.S. visit. The two leaders are expected to work on deepening defense and technology cooperation between the two countries. Biden's fellow Democrats have pressured him to raise concerns about human rights backsliding in India under Modi's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Biden would raise human rights concerns, but we do so in a way where we don't seek to lecture or assert that we don't have challenges ourselves. Modi has made 5 U.S. visits since becoming India's Prime Minister in 2014, but this is his first official state visit. Congress on Wednesday voted to censure Democratic Representative Adam Schiff for comments he made when the House, which was then controlled by Democrats, was investigating then-President Trump's ties to Russia. The resolution says Schiff abused this trust by saying there was evidence of collusion between Trump's campaign and Russia. 20 Republicans who voted with Democrats in opposing the measure decided to change their votes after the measure's sponsor, Representative Anna Luna, removed a $16 million fine that was to be imposed if the House Ethics Committee found Schiff lied. Schiff was defiant, saying, "I will not yield," and saying he would wear a rebuke from Republicans as a badge of honor. Schiff repeatedly lied about the evidence and lied about the results of the Mueller investigation over and over on national television. The Federal Trade Commission on Wednesday filed a lawsuit accusing Amazon of enrolling customers in its Prime program without their consent. The complaint said Amazon knowingly used dark patterns to sign up new Prime members, then made it difficult for them to cancel their subscriptions. The FTC said Amazon gave shoppers several options to subscribe to Prime during checkout, but made it confusing for those simply wishing to buy their items without subscribing. Amazon tricked and tracked people into recurring subscriptions without their consent, not only frustrating users, but also costing them significant money, FTC Chair Lina Khan said. Amazon spokesperson Heather Lehman said the allegations were false. "The truth is that customers love Prime," she said. Customer complaints over changes in the Prime program have continued to mount. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said in his semi-annual economic report to Congress on Wednesday that the central bank would have to hike interest rates more to bring down high inflation. The Fed paused the 15-month campaign to raise rates this month, but signaled it expected 2 more hikes this year. Inflation is down from a peak annual rate of 9.1% a year ago, but remains above 4%. The process of getting inflation down to 2% has a long way to go, he told the House Financial Services Committee. Some lawmakers have expressed concern higher rates will cost jobs. The S&P 500 fell 0.5% on Wednesday, its third straight day of losses after Powell's remarks, and stock futures slipped again early Thursday. That's the Raw Naked Truth. You can catch every episode of The Raw Naked Truth at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.